Hello, and good evening for the evening people.
Hey, hey, how are you?
I'm doing fine. I'm doing fine. Yeah. Um, how are you?
Very good, very good.
That's great to hear. Yeah, so another week, another space, um, and a lot of topics as usual to discuss and talk about, which is great. Yeah, we are recording. Thanks for the reminders.
Yeah, appreciate it. Yeah, every time I select it, but then what I've found is that if you select it when you organize the space, it doesn't save it. So now if I go in and double check, then
Oh man.
fix.
Yeah, it's very annoying. Twitter has a lot of glitches recently. There was this, I didn't even know about this feature, but my wife, who is also a heavy Twitter user, uh, she said that there was this kind of feature of like circles when you can select like a circle of friends, and then the tweets are only supposed to be shown to the circle, but that actually didn't work. So the tweets were shown to everyone. Yeah, things like that, and you were like, oh my God, like why? Yeah, never mind. Twitter is glitchy.
Many such cases, many such cases.
Yeah. Um, so yeah, a lot of interesting stuff happened this week. Like not too many, like compared to last week when we had like several major releases. Like not too many releases this week, but still quite a lot of interesting topics. And this week, I spent more time in Telegram with the community and answering questions, and it was really amazing. A lot of great questions were asked and answered in the channel, and we were going to talk about some of them because I think they're very important. Um, I think one of the craziest stories outside of Beam this week was this, and we just talked about it when, recently with you, like the great MEV robbery.
Yeah, this is a crazy one.
So, if I understand correctly, like some validator who was recently registered, he basically scammed the MEV bots by just taking their money, and this money was about 25 million US dollars, and it's absolutely crazy.
And some of it,
One
if I
second, you're closing your
remember.
microphone with your hand again.
Oh, is that
Yeah.
better? Sorry. uh, what was I going to say? Oh, and if I remember rightly, like after they'd stolen from the MEV bots, the like I think it was USDT froze the USDT that they had in their wallet.
Yeah, that's crazy. And like I didn't know this part because I only was like I do monitor some accounts on Twitter that talk about MEV. But then like I missed the fact that really like USDT blocked like $3 million of that money and like I don't understand how it does it like this even work. So I understand it's not really decentralized in some sense. Like by why would you like risk your reputation for somebody who actually like robbed MEV bots? Like how does this work legally or otherwise? Like I really don't understand how it happens. But yeah, that's a fact that it happened. And there are like
Yeah,
after like we talked about it, I looked it up, and there are actually a lot of people talking about this, and some people are even calling this kind of the most concerning DeFi development of this year, which yeah, I believe is close to that.
yeah, and it's kind of wild that at least if I remember right, they like USDT froze the funds like fairly rapidly after, and like from my experience or like from what I've seen with USDT, they don't really they're not that fast to freeze funds when it comes to this kind of thing. So that was kind of weird. And also like the fact that it come from MEV bots, not like hacked a protocol or stolen in a phishing
Yeah,
thing or
it's yeah,
whatever.
it's not a hack definitely, and the overall legality of this entire process is. not exactly well determined in the first place. So it's like difficult to say that it can be considered a crime with such, immediacy and without any additional kind of investigation. But yeah, it's absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
Uh, we are going to talk about MEV a little bit today in the context of the high frequency transactions because it's a topic that I think uh, we did talk about it, but I think it's something that we are still kind of not using enough, and we haven't not realized the full potential of this feature. But it's I think it has a lot of future with all kinds of different applications. Yeah. So okay, so let's get started with like what's going on right now in terms of like the accumulation, first of all, which is a process of accumulating liquidity before the launch of the Beam Dex for the Beam BMX pool. So we launched it last week, and it's been running since. Exactly remember the current number, but I think it was like earlier today. It was like, let me check the date on of the last. We didn't display the entire kind of total value locked in the application, but in the morning it was like 361,000 BMAX locked, which is very nice.
Nice.
Yeah. Uh, I will ask Vladdy to check how much it is now. It's just a simple CLI command, but I need to I can't talk and type obviously, right? It's like it's nonsense. Like doing two things at the same time for me is impossible.
Yeah, I always have this discussion with my partner, and I'm always telling her that men are good at doing one thing at a time. Like we don't have the superpower of
No,
multitasking.
no,
I certainly don't.
no way. Yeah, so once the accumulation phase is over, several things are going to happen. So first of all, this liquidity, once the DEX launches, this liquidity will be transferred to the Beam BMX pool, and that will be the starting liquidity of that pool. The price will be set to one BMX equal for two Beam. And also the LP tokens generated from that liquidity will be moved back into the same contract and locked according to the same conditions that were chosen by the users who locked their funds during the accumulation. And then people who are providing liquidity after the DEX launches will also have an option to lock their LP tokens in the same contract because it will kind of magically transform into a liquidity mining contract. And they will get the same lock periods as the original contract, only the bonus, like the mining reward liquidity mining reward will be the usual one and not the double early bird kind of accumulation phase. Yeah, so that's kind of what is going to happen. Now, that's like I'm not sure exactly on which day it's going to happen, but like we will obviously announce that and kind of prepare everyone for exactly when this is going to take place. One of the things that I really hope to be able to have by that point is a somewhat working early version of the web wallet. Not 100% sure it will actually happen because of like it takes time to deploy the extension to Google. They need to approve it and all that. But we are getting very close to the point where this wallet is working and operational. And we're also at the same time creating an ability to combine this wallet with the applications within the same extension. Uh, I have recently, like a couple hours earlier, I have tweeted the kind of prototype, like UI prototype for this feature, and it's going to basically look like this web page with both the dApps and the dApp store visible, and the wallet probably is going to open up like this pane sliding from either side. and then you will be able to see the wallet and the application on the same page. Immediately as you open the page, you will be asked to create a new seed phrase or restore, and then you will be able to operate all of the features of the dApp from within the same page, which in my opinion is going to be very convenient, especially for people who are just joining Beam and they will not have to download anything, install anything, like synchronize the entire node. Obviously, it has its, as we all know, it has some, kind of pros and cons in terms of the security and all that. But I think to get started, it's a great opportunity. And then if you want to continue using Beam in a more serious fashion, you can always use the same seed to restore a desktop wallet or a mobile wallet, which is also in the works. So yeah, I think it looks nice. Please let us know your opinions on Twitter. We did have a lot of suggestions and remarks about all kinds of aspects of various applications, and it's very good. Overall, the feedback that we receive from the community is very important. Not all of it is positive, which is great, because that's the best way to kind of get a reality check and to learn. And yeah, in a moment we'll talk about some of the important remarks and criticisms, and also about some things that were not exactly clear about our recent activity and all kinds of applications that were released. So yeah, we will dive into that also. Okay, so what should we start with?
That is a good question. We had some questions coming through from the community. Maybe we can start with them.
Yeah.
First one is with regards to the Beam Messenger, and specifically to like the security and privacy of the messenger, and how it compares to other private messengers available.
Yeah, it's a good question. Before that, there was also another question about the speed with which the messages are actually being delivered, the performance, whether it's going to withstand, higher load and large amounts of people wanting to communicate via the messenger. So let's start with the privacy. So how it works is basically, I almost wanted to say very simple. Whenever you type a message, this message is encrypted using your private key, which means that anyone holding your public key or like basically can decrypt it, right? So you send this message to, at this point in time, a single person who knows your public key, so he can decrypt this message that you sent him. And so basically, SBBS allows two wallets to establish this communication protocol. So wallets exchange keys, just like they create a transaction together, instead of a transaction, they create a message together.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's fairly standard cryptography. It's exactly as private as, like, in terms of the being able to decrypt the actual message. It's like standard asymmetric cryptography, nothing really exceptional about that. Now, the way that SBBS works is you put your message into the server, and the receiver doesn't actually draw a single message, because then you will be able to track, by monitoring the network or whatever, which exact message was retrieved. Instead, the retriever gets a bunch of messages together in what is called an SBBS channel. Instead of just getting all the messages that are currently pending on SBBS, we separated them into some amount of channels, and the channel is randomly generated when you encrypt the message, and then the receiver pulls the entire channel. And out of that channel, the receiver can only decrypt the message that was encrypted for it using their public key. So basically what happens is that no one can see exactly which message out of this channel was actually sent to this receiver. So it's kind of more secure and not revealing your identity when you pull the messages. So this is like in terms of like how it works in Beam. I'm not a big expert about how Telegram or Signal work, but so there is no centralized server in Beam case. There is no server, and like the connection or the direct like encrypted channel between the two wallets is established, I think, in a similar manner But since there is like no single server in between, and obviously no one is holding any kind of master keys, uh, I think in this regard it's pretty similar. One major difference, or like one difference, is that those messages they expire. That means that each SBBS message has a time to live of 24 hours, and after 24 hours, it can be obviously discarded. So, like, if the node is operating correctly, and obviously a node can decide to record and store all of these SBBS messages forever, but from the user perspective, they can no longer retrieve those messages after 24 hours. So if somebody sends a message and somebody doesn't read it after 24 hours, they will never be able to. It's not a feature of the messenger, and it's not a security feature. That feature is only exists to reduce the load of storing a lot of messages on the nodes that run as BBS, which by default are all nodes that are run by Beam. So that's kind of it's an optimization feature. So it doesn't add any additional security level, but that's how it works today. Yeah. Now, it's important to say that if your wallet is like captured, like if your seed or like your wallet information is somehow seized or discovered, your SDBS messages are no longer private as well because the same keys are used to encrypt them. Okay, so just like you will lose your coins, you'll probably also lose any information, or like it can be accessed and decrypted if you lose your keys. So it's important to understand that. Yeah, I hope that answers the question.
Makes sense. I have a question. Like often Telegram is described as being like a private messenger, but most of the message or most of the chats, like person to person chats, just a private message, these are not encrypted, or
Okay, I really don't want to like say anything wrong here because I'm not an expert, and but I do know a couple of things. First of all, like we need to look really carefully what is encrypted and what is not encrypted, because
yeah,
like don't assume that something is encrypted by default. There are all kinds of different types of public chats and personal chats, and then you have the secure chat. So if you are serious about your privacy, please like go and invest in reading about how exactly this feature works, because you might find a
yeah,
lot of fine print there. And also, like, it's important to understand where these communications are really like end-to-end encrypted, what kind of metadata is being stored, because, in addition to the text itself, there's also a lot of metadata like who talked to whom, for how long, at what time of day, and things like that. And this is not exactly part of the chat. It's something that can be very easily stored on the servers and then
yeah.
available, yeah, to any authority that would request that. So it's an important part to like don't ignore the metadata.
Yeah, for sure. And it's like something that at least I've seen a few times come up in relation to like crypto protocols having been hacked, and like some of the metadata that they had leaked and this kind of stuff being used to help identify them at least. Not that like totally different thing. Not that you would be using Beam Messenger to do stuff like that. Just made me think of it. I have another question, totally. Well, actually, also regarding communication and specifically about Nefrit.
Yeah.
And the question is, when will there be a Nefrit Telegram group, and will they upload their code to GitHub?
Yeah. So uh, in terms of communicating with Nifrit, I suggest to use Twitter, which is a channel, or the medium that they certainly monitor, because we saw them communicating there. I have no idea if they even like. You have to have like a telephone line, right, or telephone number to join Telegram. You can't just join Telegram. You have to have some phone, right? I believe it's
I
a,
think so,
I
yeah.
believe it's a requirement. Anyway, talk on Twitter, and also in general, one of the things that I wanted to discuss, regardless, and it was mentioned by a lot of people in the community for a while now. Uh, it's great. Like, for example, this entire week, there were a lot of great discussions in the community about many things, stable coins in general, oracles in general. But these discussions, as great as they are, do not generate any incoming traffic. So my kind of thought is whether it will be possible, and this is an open question, like totally looking for advice here. Somehow move at least part of our great conversations to Twitter, because then it can attract, innocent bystanders into the mix and make them kind of engaged and interested in those conversations. Some of them are very being specific, but some of them are very general. For example, one of the kind of most interesting discussions was about like how collateralized or over collateralized stable coins work in general, right? So what's the difference between DAI and liquidity and defreed, right? All of these things we discussed quite a lot, and I
Yep.
think this is something that can draw attention from a lot of enthusiasts of stablecoins in general, and into the mix. Maybe somebody from liquidity will come and kind of answer some of the questions that relate to the liquidity protocol. So I really think what would be the best way, without breaking what we already have, which is a great community with like very nice discussions in Telegram, also move at least part of that into Twitter. So it's an open question, and I would love opinions about that. Uh, so back to the fleet for a second, and the source code. So if you monitor the community, you saw that like once they published the source code, it was quickly not discovered, but like there is also a Nifrit code in almost, or like a very similar version in Beam GitHub. But once again, uh, the code that was actually deployed, it was published as a standalone kind of zip file with the specific code that was deployed. So it's like it's not instead of, but rather like as a reference, because Beam did develop the reference design for the fleet. And to upload, I don't know if they're going to upload their code to GitHub, because like I'm not sure exactly, once again, how the privacy of GitHub works for them. But in terms of if you really want to study how it works or play with the code or understand the mechanisms, a very similar version of what was deployed is in our GitHub right now, and it's open to the public. So you can just go there and look in our shaders folder and look for Nifrit. So it's the reference design is there. If you want to understand specifically what was deployed, then you can take a look at the code that was published. So I don't know if it will be uploaded to GitHub anytime, but if you want some code in GitHub that's very similar to what was deployed, you can just look at our GitHub. So that, I think, answers that question as well.
Wicked. And want to say that I very much agree with the comments about like asking some of the questions and having some of these conversations on Twitter. I mean, it helps to bring new people in and spreads awareness, and also easier to like share with other people links to tweets and this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Rather than like only having it confined to the Beam Telegram, where there's all this great conversation going on, but we're not really letting or getting other people to see it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we need to find a good way to have the conversations there. I think it will be very beneficial, for drawing new users and new kind of people interested in Beam. Now, while we're on the topic of Nifrit, there are two related discussions that are very important to mention. So let's continue with that. The first one was about oracles, because Nifrit, just like any other over-collateralized stable, uses an oracle. And the oracles, as we know, is always kind of a problematic point, because the oracles are usually like centralized or not decentralized. And this is the second topic that we're going to talk about, the topic of Nifrit, whether Nifrit is centralized or decentralized. But let's start with the oracles first. So what's an oracle, first of all? It's a service that allows you to inject data from outside world into the blockchain. Why, like, why does it have a special name? Like, what's so special about it? So when you are running a blockchain, Bitcoin or any other, each node in the blockchain can get data from the blockchain, do any kind of processing on it, and then return the result of that processing into the blockchain, whether it's a simple transaction or a smart contract call or whatever, right? And in terms of the validity of the data on the blockchain, the node is, the fully responsible party. Like the node is responsible to verify that all of the data that it initially received when it first started is valid by validating the entire blockchain up to the latest available block. And then all the incoming transactions are validated by the same node that they're consistent both within themselves and also with the context of the blockchain as it is known. And if there is a reorganization, like reorg in the blockchain, and suddenly a new branch appears with more proof of work or more proof in general, then it is responsible to switch to this new branch. So all of these things are responsibility of the node. However, any other external data, which is not originating from the blockchain, is a complete mystery, right? So somebody says, oh, Beam is worth, I don't know, 5 cents today. And there is absolutely no way to verify this information for two reasons. First of all, this information can never be true. What does it mean? Like, who says it's 5 cents? Maybe it's 5.5 or 4.5 or whatever, right? So there is a market. In the market, there are many, many players. Somebody collects the information about the latest deals and then aggregates it. So we have coin market cap and we have exchanges and we have a lot of information. So there is no actual answer, like one single answer for the question, what's the price of Beam at this very second? And the next second can be different. However, we do need to determine the price of Beam because the collateral, like if we want to create a system in which an unstable crypto is somehow represented in US dollars, we do need to get this price, however correct it may be, at some specific point of time from somewhere. And this is where the oracles come in. The oracles can provide any type of external data. They can provide data about weather in Scotland, and they can provide data about the current, score in the Los Angeles Lakers, Memphis Grizzlies game or whatever. In any case, it comes from outside and it's injected into the blockchain, right? The blockchain cannot go and ask anyone. That's not how it works because each node will ask a different source and they will not agree and the consensus will go kaput. So usually the oracles work by sending transactions that inject external data into the blockchain. Okay, so that's the mechanism and that's how it works. Now, from that point, we can ask like, what's the reliability of the oracle in two aspects. First, like the reliability of the data itself, because obviously if somebody comes and says that Beam is now worth $10, as nice as it might be to hear, that's not the truth, right? Also, somebody can just say, nobody knows what the price, like the oracle can collapse and disappear, and then also nobody will know on the blockchain what the price of Beam is. So these are two completely different aspects. The reliability in terms of the which data sources are used and whether they are truthful, and whether the oracle is stable and available. One of the top companies today that provide oracle services is Chainlink. They have developed their own protocol for that purpose. They have created an ecosystem and they have solidified their place in the market and reputation of a top-notch oracle data provider. Unfortunately, since Beam is not a top, 30 crypto in the world, Chainlink, as you can imagine, are hugely popular. We talked to them twice in two completely different stages of Beam development, once before the contracts were available and once after the contracts were available. And basically, it's like when you're coming, to a very popular restaurant without a reservation, and they just like, you want what? A table here? Very funny. Come back next year, right?
Yeah.
So that's basically what happened. They said, yeah, you're on the list, and your number is, coin market cap plus 10. They were very polite, and they provided all the information and how to integrate guides and all that. However, that didn't really, that was not feasible. Um, so having said that, we needed some kind of solution. So we said, okay, we can't get chaining. So what are we going to do? So we did the oracles ourselves. What does it mean? We have a contract. The contract is open source, available in the same folder as everything in the the Oracle contract folder. What it does is it receives price feeds from several sources and averages them. You can take a look at the code exactly to understand how it is averaged. It's a good contract. Vladi wrote it. It's smart, right? So no doubts there. It was tested. The sources themselves, they run on centralized machines, several different centralized machines in different locations, and they provide those feeds to the contract, which averages them, and that's the price of Beam that is used by any application that needs an Oracle on Beam, because there are no other Oracles of Beam right now. We will talk about that in a second. And Nifrit is one of those applications. Okay? All clear so far? Okay. Now, there were kind of two questions, like how really stable and good are those oracles? And the answer is they are as good as what? I disappeared? Ah, if you can you hear me? If you can hear me, do some, I don't know, thumbs up because Gus cannot hear me anymore. Okay. Okay, so you can hear me. All good. So it's just Gus. Anyway, thank you, thank you. Okay, so the oracles that we did, they are basically, as good as things that we are doing in general, but not better. They're, as good as bridges, which are also centralized. I cannot claim that those are the best oracles in the world, but those are the oracles, we can afford at this moment. Not ideal. Yeah, I would love to integrate chaining, but that's what we have to work with, right? Specifically, the Nifrit contract implies having two oracles, a main oracle and a backup oracle. So right now, only the main is activated. So there is no backup oracle right now because there is no other oracle other than the one that we have deployed. And also, it would be nonsense to have the same oracle both as like the first one, the second one. Can other people deploy their oracle? Yes, it's possible. It's like it's fairly easy, right? You can deploy another contract, but once again, the oracle needs to be precise and available. Which brings us to the second question that was discussed in the same kind of discussion is whether Nifrit can be considered centralized or decentralized because it uses a centralized oracle. And another topic is whether there can be a decentralized oracle, and I will talk about that as well. So let's talk about Nifrit first. Nifrit as a contract is decentralized and it's governanceless. So it means that there is no kind of single user or group of users or whomever that can affect any conditions of the contract without an upgrade. The upgrade of the contract is a procedure that is, unless explicitly blocked, can be done on any contract within a specified period of time that was set when the contract was first deployed. And it's true for any contract on Beam. Why? Because if you want to upgrade a contract, it's unreasonable to, do this immediately because people need time to react to an upgrade. So if we detect an upgrade to a contract, there is at least, in Fleet case, I think it's 1 week, something like that, maybe 2 weeks, I don't remember exact number, but there is some time to respond to any contract upgrade, which is specified when the contract is deployed, and this is some of the information that can be extracted from the contract and should be available in the new Explorer. So Nifrit is completely decentralized as a contract. However, it does use a centralized oracle. Now, what happens if the oracle fails? Then Nifrit stops working. right? So it just stops doing anything. It's not like if there is no oracle, there will be no free transaction. So the state is kind of frozen. Obviously, it's not an ideal situation, but at least people will not be, misled by a wrong price or like old price. That's the situation. Now, regarding the possibility of decentralized oracles, somebody said, "Oh, there are decentralized oracles," and gave me some examples of protocols. Now, this is going to kind of definition of what decentralized really means. And I'm a little bit of a purist in this specific department. Usually I'm not, but here for some reason I'm a little bit stuck. Like if you have a blockchain like Bitcoin, right? Why do I call it decentralized? It is permissionless, like anyone can at any time deploy a node and mine Bitcoin, right? It may be futile, it may be profitable or not profitable, it doesn't matter, but it is a possibility that exists. And you have a sufficient amount of nodes already running. So yeah, you can call it decentralized. Like if tomorrow a lot of people will say, "Oh, we stop running Bitcoin," then another group of people can come and say, "Yeah, we are doing that." However, if it's a proof of stake chain, unless it is really very large and like really decentralized, like always there is this kind of possibility, like you don't know who those stakers are, right? Necessarily, how colluded they are, how, yes, Bitcoin miners can also collude, but that's a little bit kind of different. Proof of work is easier to talk about decentralization than other methods. And most of those Oracle chains that call themselves decentralized, they're using validators. And those validators, they say, yeah, okay, so let's say somebody says, oh, the price of Beam is 5 cents. So, okay, let's validate that. And we have some kind of consensus mechanism based on whatever, proof of authority, proof of stake, it doesn't matter. Like, okay, I can call it federated, right? It's okay. Depending once again on the number of validators, obviously the more validators which are really truly kind of permissionless and can be added at any time by anyone. But this is always a problem with such systems because the risk of receiving wrong information from the Oracle is very high. And one thing that you really don't want to do is allow hijacking of the Oracle feed by kind of legitimate means, right? So the second that it's more profitable to hijack the Oracle, the damage can be much more than just, I don't know, even the rollback or like, mining something like, I don't know, forking the chain or whatever, right? The implications can be huge. And that's why unless really, the Oracle is so hugely based on, a large amount of validators on a like, crazy powerful chain, and we don't have Oracles like that right now, I would rather err to the side of centralization and call all of these oracles centralized or federated, and then really call them decentralized, even though they are themselves, calling themselves decentralized. So I don't buy that. And that's why I said in the chat that, all oracles are basically centralized, because once again, its external data cannot be validated by the blockchain, comes usually from some amount of sources, which is not very high. And yeah, like oracles are problematic, just like bridges. Yeah, so that's kind of, I think, the answer to that one. Okay. Do we have Gus back online, or I will continue to the next question myself? Yeah, I'll take a small question before Gus is back. So the question is about the faucet, and why is it always empty?
I'm potentially online, but I'm not sure if there's a delay.
No, you are. Like I heard you right now. Say something. 3, 2, 1, 21, 22. Okay, I don't know. There is a delay probably. Anyway, the faucet. The faucet is both, the pride and the sorrow of smart contracts on Beam recently. First of all, I'm really proud of this faucet because it's the only decentralized faucet that I know of, right? And the reason this faucet can exist is because of this feature that, for some reason, I'm very proud of, is that Beam contracts can subsidize transactions. So the user can come, download the Beam wallet, have absolutely zero of any confidential asset in their wallet, and send a transaction, and the faucet will say, "Oh, here, get some small amount of Beam, and I will also pay for your fees," which is super nice. I don't know, I really like it. However, the previous attempt to launch a faucet was like each wallet receives an opportunity to get a small amount of Beam once a day or something like that. So a lot of smart people out there in our community immediately wrote a script that generates, shitload of wallets and gets every single last gross out of the faucet. So the total amount of Beam in the faucet was, I don't know, 100, right? But that's okay. Like we will take all of that. So the faucet was very quickly depleted, and we stopped putting new funds and removed it from the store, and kind of gave up on it for a while. The current faucet version has a global lock of how much you can withdraw per period of time. Like you can withdraw, I don't know, some amount every 10 minutes, right? So if that same person or other people are still really, really, out to get that money that is in the faucet, then they will just sample, right? It will not help them to create new wallets, but they will probably just sample the wallet the faucet every once in a while and get all the funds anyway. If it's not happening, and I didn't monitor the situation, but you can just try in a few minutes, and we will add this information. It's not it shouldn't be a secret. It was just not reflected well in the app, but we will, kind of add this label of the faucet is currently reloading, come back in 5 minutes or something like that. So yeah, it's kind of both the feature I'm really proud of, and then again, it's not possible to protect it, or at least I didn't come up with a good solution to protect the decentralized faucet from this kind of exploitation. Yeah. Anyone has any questions except me and Gus? You can always request to speak. Okay, so yeah, couple of things that I want to talk about in regards to the web wallet. Just kind of some things that I would like to mention. So what we're trying to do is not only to have the web wallet available, which is nice, but also to have it integrated with the dApp Store. So right now, the dApp Store is available inside our wallets as a feature of the wallet. So it's not the dApp Store. It's not exactly a dApp of itself, right? So it's still part of the wallet. And what we want to do is to create a fully fledged dApp out of it. Because our dApp Store supports both hosted and downloaded applications and applications that were distributed through the IPFS, the decentralized part of the dApp Store, it's actually a dApp in it of itself, and we can integrate it in a very nice way within the same page as the web wallet. And as I said, I have sent this rendering of how it may look like, and I would like your kind of input. And then this is like the part where we can actually do a lot of interesting, I would say marketing campaigns around it, because the simplicity of getting to this page and getting started with Beam is very very immediate. It's not like you need to download and install, and I think it's very important. So I would like to get as many comments about that as possible. In terms of like, what do you think would be the best onboarding process like for the user of a new wallet from the web? Because yeah, we do have like the onboarding for the desktop wallet, but the web wallet was always relatively kind of smaller part of the operations for some reason, but now it's going to get the main stage, both in terms of the features and both in terms of the, in my opinion, like the amount of new users that like are going to encounter Beam are going to encounter it through web wallet. So it's very important for us all to nail down this experience. So I would really like to welcome any comments. We will provide like the developer version of the wallet very soon, so you can just play with it in your browser on the DAppNet, obviously. We are not going to release it to Chrome Store like we did previously with the testnet. So that's like another important point. Speaking of the testnet is probably going to be removed for now in order to save costs and time. So we did have like initially we have the testnet and the mainnet, and then we added the DAppNet, which was specifically adapted for kind of the ease of testing decentralized applications. The difference between the testnet and the DAppNet is that the DAppNet does not use real mining. It uses kind of fake node that creates new blocks every 15 seconds. And the idea was that instead of like waiting for operations with real mining, especially on the testnet, which is weaker and has less stable hash power than the mainnet, it's much easier to just simulate blocks every short period of time to just feel how the application works without waiting for long, for the block confirmation time. So right now the DAppNet is, in my opinion, the most updated of all of the, between the testnet and the DAppNet, all the new applications are on the DAppNet, all of the activity, and as the focus kind of shifts, more and more to decentralized applications, I think the DAppNet becomes more important and more central in the testing process. So for now, we will probably remove the testnet entirely, and the only kind of time where we really need, the testnet is before hard forks, because obviously hard forks involve, real mining, and it needs to be tested on really mined testnet before it can be deployed. So before the hard fork, we will reestablish the testnet, synchronize it, and perform all of the community testing of the hard fork process on the testnet. That's the thinking. Another update regarding the reverse bridges, which is the moving Beam to Ethereum as your ERC20 token. That work is also moving along like nicely. I'm not sure like that the test version will be ready next week, so I don't want to promise, but it's somewhere in that vicinity, right? So we're talking about like 1 to 2 weeks to the DAppNet version that we can play with. And then if everything goes well, we will deploy it. So it will be possible to move Beam to Ethereum and not just bring Ethereum to Beam. So yeah.
That's wicked.
Welcome back.
I believe I'm back. Okay, cool. Sorry about that. I have a question relating to, you may have covered it and I may have missed it while I was trying to get stuff to work again. But I ask anyway, and if so, you can tell me.
Sure.
Someone asked if the DEX could be made to look more like Uniswap and PancakeSwap, and I have kind of a follow-up question. Is the reason that, or one of the reasons that this is in the current design because of the way the routing works in the Beam DEX for the initial launch?
What works?
The routing, like the routing of the swaps.
No,
Okay.
not exactly. So there is no kind of, I would say, one major reason why we started like with the list of pools as a main screen. But so the problem is that I don't know if it's a problem, but it was just a kind of UI decision. I cannot say if it was like a really good one or a bad one. Okay, so our assumption was that mostly you are going to trade with one or two or three pools or pairs. And in this case, what we have done is simplified the pool selection process with like you can just click the star and create like mark 2 or 3 of favorite pools, and you will always see those pools in front of you when you open the dApp. Instead of like going into the like once again, I'm not a very big experienced Uniswap user, but that was the thinking. I'm just explaining like what we thought, and maybe we were not correct. Instead of like going to this selector where when you start with selecting a coin and then like the other coin. So it was kind of in our opinion, or in my opinion, back in the day, a simpler process, right? Um, Two things. First of all, we will not change that before the launch. That will not be possible. Uh, Nobody says it cannot be changed ever. So first of all, we are going to see how it works. If it doesn't, you know, you will let us know. We will listen and we will vote, and we will do a bounty, and we will change that, right? So it's not an issue. It's just the UI. It's just basically web development. By the way, you can take this code. It's open source. You can modify it so that it will show you the pairs first. You can do anything you want. And yeah, obviously the official version will also be updated if everyone will decide that it's better to have the list of coins first, and DAO can vote on it, off chain, on chain. We have all of these mechanisms available. But that was the reasoning of why we started with the pools.
Wicked. Makes sense. And like I am a very avid user of Uniswap, and I do like that UI. This wasn't my question. This was someone from the community. But the tweet that you, Alex, sent out earlier today showing the Dex and the UI with the web wallet looks amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, I will tell the designer that she did a great job, which she did. um, yeah, yeah. It looks great, and it's like I still think that in terms of the store itself, like how the applications are presented, it's really not the final version at all. Not the designers did a great job on the kind of adapting the existing layout, but I think it needs to look more like a dashboard. You want to see like the stats of your application. Like today, what is going on is that each application decides for itself, like what it shows inside the application. There is absolutely no information shown outside. Like you go into the store, it looks like kind of plain list of whatever. There are no indication of how much is the total value locked in that app, how many transactions go through it, right? Which are the most popular applications in terms of activity. You don't know any of that. To get this information, once the new Explorer is out, you will have to go to the new Explorer. So it's like it's unacceptable, right? It's not something that we want to do in the long run. Ideally, I think you would like to go into the Beam Web Wallet and immediately see the most popular applications and what is going on and like what's the level of activity in each and every one of them. By the way, it's the same. I think it's kind of the same issue with I don't know. Even I don't know. Maybe Uniswap. They have different kind of pages for the pool statistics and the pool, activity like that you are doing. So I think we can combine that into a much smoother experience. So that's at least what I hope to do. Because all of this information is accessible and available to the shaders, which eventually can feed it into any kind of web UI that we create. So there is no reason to separate between the blockchain explorer function, like unless you are looking for a specific kernel or a specific transaction, then yes, of course. But in terms of like showing the info on the smart contracts, I think a lot of this information can be very nicely embedded into the dApp Store itself, including details, like, for example, when this contract was deployed, or like things like if we are talking about a confidential asset, what is the cap on that asset if it exists, which is also a little bit confusing. Like, for example, somebody asked, okay, so we have the asset minter, and it shows what was the question there? I think it was about Ifrit or I don't exactly remember, but like one of the assets that is actually controlled by a smart contract, it shows as uncapped, right, in the asset minter, which is correct because the asset minter only knows about the cap of the assets that it minted, but about the rest of the assets, it knows that it's controlled by the smart contract, but it doesn't know exactly like if there is any cap on that. So it shows like unlimited supply, but in fact, it is limited by some logic. Um, yeah, so all of this information I think can be presented in much better way inside the dApp store, which, by the way, is one of the topics that we recently discussed with Vladi, who just joined the space, which is very nice. Hi, Vladi. And it's in general about a better integration between the desktop wallet and the dApps, right? So like right now we have a very strict permissions to not allow any dApp to see any information from the wallet, which coins it holds, what are the balances, like none of that is available to the dApp. However, it does provide a lot of limitations on the usability. Let's say, in order to send funds to dApp's address, I'm sorry, to Band's address, you have to go into the Band's application and then you have to select an address and only you cannot do it from a regular send dialog because these are two different domains. And also, if you want to go into the text and see exactly which pools you currently own the LP tokens for, you cannot see that because the application cannot see your balance, right? So you have to either favorite them or do some kind of other activity like trial and error, which is less than ideal. And in some cases, these precautions are really important for privacy, but in some cases, we might allow the user to decide which information is available for the dApp. And the user may decide that the DEX application is trusted enough, and it can know some balances, like the LP token balances or whatever. So that's also an improvement that we can, discuss and make.
That's a good point. And like one thing that I've noticed myself, like outside of Beam, sometimes I've had like LP tokens, and then I've gone to whether it's Uniswap or SushiSwap and looked at my pools, and they didn't show up, and then I had a very difficult time like figuring out what I'd done or what was going on. I can imagine I will be in a similar situation, but it goes back to what we discussed in previous spaces about that trade-off between like privacy and like ease of use or usability and where the line should be drawn or that kind of thing.
Yeah. It's always like kind of difficult. So kind of one last story without opening a can of worms, but it reminded me about like you talked about the trade-offs. Everybody knows who Jonathan Davis is, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so Jonathan Davis is a Beam community member, less active in Beam recently, but he was always a very, I would say, kind of, how would I put it? Uh, a moral compass of sorts uh, by criticizing many of the decisions that we made, uh, especially, and like this is one of the topics that always are controversial, the coin selection, right? Like how do you select which UTXO to spend at any time, which were unlinked and which were linked and all of that. And like, yeah, so this is exactly a great example of when, we needed to make a decision of how much control over the wallet we wanted to give, especially in the UI, right? In the CLI, you can do a lot of things, but in the UI, it was always a struggle, right? Do we allow to specify in each transaction exactly which UTXO was spent and like all that? Yeah, so it's always a problem to decide where to go with that. Um,
Absolutely, and like you mentioned, moral compass, and like often it's never so black and white, and like this is how it should be,
yeah,
which
yeah,
which can be easy. Like think that. I mean, I find myself in everyday life doing that kind of thing. This is how it should be, but really, it's not that simple, and there's always nuance involved.
I totally agree. Um, Somehow the hour is over. I don't know how that happened.
Yeah, well, I apologize for my connectivity issues, and I see that there's a crowdfunding going on for a new home network in the Beam Price chat. So I look forward to that. Uh,
Okay.
but I no, I made it back, so I'm glad about that, and found it very like interesting all of what was covered.
Yeah. One of the topics that we didn't discuss, but we will leave it for the next time, or for the, in between spaces time, which is kind of most of the week, I would say, about uh, the crowdfunding platform, right? Basically, the platform that will allow people to fund specific projects on chain as a DApp. Yeah, it was kind of discussed several times, and it's not very difficult to build, so I think we can do that. But yeah.
And this is one that's been like talked about for quite a while as well. Like it always comes up, and especially when something's in the news regarding like some of the crowdfunding platforms. I think last year or the year before or something, there was
Hmm.
the truckers had all their stuff frozen or something, and this year someone different, and next year someone different again. Uh, I think it's a very cool, like cool and kind of simple application, and very good use case.
Absolutely. By the way, in general, like a lot of recommendations that come, recently are really great recommendations, whether it's to apply, to like specific organizations, exchanges. Yeah, like keep them coming. Like it's all working, right? We are doing that, and pursuing all of these tips that we're given. Listen, you should register this in this site or there. Like it's all working. Telegram groups, it's all good. So it helps a lot. A lot of thanks to everyone, and keep doing that. Yeah, and I'm online. So talk to me, talk to everyone, and we will see you next week.
Wicked. Thank you again so much, Alex, and see you next week.
Yeah, thank you. It's been great as usual. Thanks. Bye bye, everyone.
See you guys. Thanks.